There is a moment every summer, usually sometime in late June, when you walk into a store to buy one thing and you walk out having spent $40 or $50 on bottles you did not know you needed until the store told you that you did. A bottle for the grill, a bottle for the cooler, something for the mildew on the patio cushions, something else for the bug bites, and you drive home with a bag full of promises and a lighter wallet and the quiet suspicion that something about all of it is not quite right. That suspicion is correct, and I am going to show you why. Who I am and what this is really about. My name is Esther Yoder. I keep house in Lancaster County with my husband and our 7 children, the old way, the way it was handed down to me. We do not have a cleaning aisle. We have a pantry with a few plain things and the knowing of how to use them. What I want to show you today costs about $1 at any pharmacy. A small brown bottle, hydrogen peroxide, 3%. The same bottle your grandmother kept in her medicine cabinet and used for a great deal more than you ever realized. Summer is when that little bottle earns its keep more than any other season. The heat brings bugs, the rain brings mold, the sweat brings stains, the garden runs wild, and most people spend $50 on separate bottles for each problem, when one plain bottle would have handled all of it. I am going to show you 17 ways. Let us get started. A few things you need to know before we start. Before we get into the uses, a few plain things said once so I do not have to interrupt myself later. Always use 3% peroxide. The stronger concentrations can cause real harm, 3% every time, without exception. Never mix peroxide with vinegar. I have said this before, and I will keep saying it because people keep doing it. Together they make peracetic acid, which produces harsh fumes and can burn your skin and eyes. Use one, then the other. Never both at once. Store it in a cool, dark place. Light breaks it down, which is why it comes in a brown bottle. Pour it into a clear spray bottle on a sunny sill, and you are just spraying water at your problems. Now, let us get to the good part. Use one. Cooling a sunburn. Summer skin is different from winter skin. You are out in it more. The sun works on it daily, and every now and again, despite your best intentions, you or one of your children comes inside from a long afternoon looking like a boiled beet. I have 7 children. This happens more than I would like to admit. My youngest has red hair, which is its own particular kind of adventure every July. Most people reach for the aloe gel or the spray bottle of something that smells vaguely of chemicals and costs $6. But here is what peroxide does that those things often do not. A sunburn breaks down the skin barrier, and when that barrier is open, bacteria can get in and cause secondary infection, which is what turns a simple burn into a real problem. Peroxide is one of the most effective disinfectants you can put on broken or irritated skin. It cleans the surface, reduces the bacterial load, and the gentle fizzing action actually brings a cooling sensation that gives real relief. Mix equal parts 3% peroxide and cool water in a spray bottle. Spray it gently onto the burned skin and let it air dry. Do not rub. The skin does not need rubbing right now. You will feel it fizz and cool and settle. Do this 2 or 3 times the first day. It does not heal a sunburn faster. I will not pretend it does, but it keeps the damaged skin clean and calm while it heals on its own. A plain thing, honestly told. Use 2. Whitening, yellowed. Summer linens. Sweat and sunscreen and summer heat together make the particular kind of stain that sits in the fabric of your pillowcases and your light-colored blouses and your cotton sheets and just will not leave. You have seen it. That dull, yellow-gray discoloration that builds up over a summer and by September has you wondering whether the sheets are even worth washing anymore. Most people pour bleach on it, which works on the stain but works on the fabric too. Bleach does not know the difference between the stain and the thread. Over time, it weakens the fibers and thins the fabric until one day the cloth just gives way, and you have bought yourself a new set of sheets a year or two sooner than you should have needed to. Peroxide whitens without that damage. Hydrogen peroxide is an oxidizing agent, which means it breaks apart the chemical bonds of the stain the same way bleach does, but far more gently and without the harsh residue. Pour the 3% peroxide directly onto the yellowed area. Let it sit for 10 minutes. You will see it working, that familiar fizz. Then wash the item as you normally would. For stubborn stains, make a paste with baking soda and peroxide together and work it into the fabric with your fingers before washing. The combination gives you gentle whitening power that costs almost nothing and leaves your linens intact. Use 3. Disinfecting the outdoor cooler. Open a cooler that has been sitting in the garage since last summer, and you will know immediately that something has been living in there. That smell, that particular combination of old ice water and forgotten food and time, is bacteria and mold and everything the heat of a closed garage encourages to grow in a dark, damp place. I do not know a polite way to describe it. It smells like a decision you regret. The instinct is to reach for a chemical cleaner, but here is the trouble with that. You are about to put food in there. Sandwiches and fruit and the potato salad your aunt made, bless her heart. You do not want chemical residue in the place where your food sits. Peroxide disinfects completely and breaks down into nothing but water and oxygen. No residue, no taste, nothing left behind. Spray the inside of the cooler thoroughly with 3% peroxide. Every surface, every corner, the lid, the drain plug. Let it sit 15 minutes, then wipe it down with a clean cloth and let it air dry with the lid open. The fizzing you see is the peroxide working through any organic material left behind. When it has dried, your cooler is clean and safe and will not smell like something that has seen things. Use 4. Keeping cut flowers alive longer. If you grow a garden, and I hope you do, then summer means cutting flowers to bring inside. Zinnias and black-eyed Susans and whatever your particular corner of the world grows best. The trouble is that cut flowers in a vase of standing water are surrounded almost immediately by bacteria, and it is that bacteria, more than the heat or the thirst, that kills them fast. My grandmother kept her cut flowers longer than anyone I have ever known, 2 weeks sometimes, when everyone else was replacing their vases at the end of the first week. Her secret was a few drops of peroxide in the vase water, just a few, not a splash, not a capful, a few drops per quart of water stirred in. The peroxide kills the bacteria in the water before it can clog the stems and cut off the water supply to the bloom. Clean water moves up a clean stem. That is the whole science of it. Change the water every 2 days and add a few fresh drops each time. It costs almost nothing, and your flowers will outlast anything you bring home from the shop. Use 5. Garden pest control on summer vegetables. I talked about this for houseplants in another video, but the summer vegetable garden is a different situation and deserves its own honest telling. Aphids and spider mites and whiteflies love the heat of summer, and they will find your tomatoes and your squash and your beans, and they will make themselves very much at home without asking your permission. Commercial pesticides work. I will not tell you they do not. But they also leave residue on the very food you grew to feed your family, and they harm the bees and the ladybugs that your garden needs to thrive. That is a trade I am not willing to make. Mix 1 teaspoon of 3% peroxide into 1 gallon of plain water. Pour it into a spray bottle and spray your affected plants thoroughly, tops and undersides of the leaves both, because that is where the pests hide. The peroxide works as a contact insecticide on soft-bodied pests. Aphids and spider mites and whiteflies do not have the thick protective shell of a beetle or a bee, so the peroxide reaches them, and they cannot survive it, while your bees, who are not sitting on the leaf surface being sprayed are left unharmed. Spray in the early morning or late evening, never in full midday sun. The combination of peroxide and bright summer sun can scorch a leaf, and you have enough to worry about without adding that to the list. Use 6. Treating summer foot fungus. I debated whether to include this one. Then I remembered that I keep house with 7 children and a husband, and nobody in my family has ever been too delicate to talk about a foot. So here we are. Warm weather means sandals and bare feet, and swimming and wet ground, and all the conditions that fungus finds most welcoming. Athlete's foot and toenail fungus thrive in summer the way zucchini does, which is to say, aggressively and without much encouragement. Peroxide works against fungus because it creates an oxygen-rich environment that fungal organisms cannot tolerate. Soak a cotton ball in 3% peroxide and apply it to the affected area twice a day. You will feel it fizz, which is normal and means it is working through the compromised skin. Let it air dry completely before putting on socks or shoes, because putting a foot back into a warm, dark shoe before it is dry is exactly the condition you are trying to fight against. Now, I will tell you plainly. Peroxide is a good first line of defense for mild fungal trouble. If you have a deep nail infection or something that has been going on for months, that is a conversation for a doctor, not a video. Use peroxide for what it can do and know when a thing is bigger than what you can treat at home. There is no shame in that. Use 7. Cleaning the outdoor grill. Every summer, the grill earns a good cleaning, and almost nobody does it properly. They run the brush over the grates when the grill is hot and call that done, but the grease and the char and the bacteria that build up over a summer of cooking are not addressed by a wire brush and good intentions. And then you cook your food directly on those grates, which is something I try not to think about too hard. Spray the cool grates thoroughly with 3% peroxide and let it sit for 10 minutes. Then scrub with your grill brush. The peroxide loosens the baked-on grease and kills the bacteria that live in it. Wipe down with a damp cloth and let it air dry before your next cook. You can also spray the outside surfaces of the grill, the lid, the side tables, the knobs, which accumulate grease and grime over a summer, and get touched by hands before and after handling raw meat. No chemical residue, no taste carried into your food, just a clean grill and a clear conscience. Use 8. Brightening. Grout on outdoor tile and patios. Summer rain and summer heat together do something to the grout between your patio tiles that no amount of sweeping addresses. Mold and algae settle into those tiny porous channels and turn them from white or gray to something closer to the color of regret. And because grout is porous, it soaks things in. Bleach will kill the surface mold, but leave the roots alive underneath, and the mold comes back within the week, right on schedule, as though it had somewhere to be. Peroxide reaches into those pores. That fizzing action works its way down into the tiny channels of the grout and kills the mold at its roots, not just on the surface. Pour 3% peroxide directly onto the grout lines. Let it sit 10 to 15 minutes. Scrub with a stiff brush. Rinse with clean water. For grout that has been going dark for a season or more, you may need 2 or 3 treatments a week apart to fully clear it. But it will clear, and it will stay clear longer than any bleach treatment will, because you have addressed the root of the problem and not just the face of it. Use 9. Keeping the compost bin from smelling. I love my compost bin. I want to say that before I say anything else, because what I am about to describe should not discourage anyone from composting. A well-managed compost pile is one of the most useful things a household can maintain, and one of the best things you can do for a garden. My grandmother composted everything that could be composted, and her garden showed it every summer. But in the heat of July and August, even a well-managed bin can turn fragrant in ways your neighbors notice. The smell of a summer compost bin is caused by anaerobic bacteria, the kind that thrive when there is not enough oxygen getting through the pile. They produce hydrogen sulfide and ammonia as they work, which is the source of that particular smell that I will only describe as enthusiastic. A light spray of diluted peroxide, 1 part to 4 parts water, over the top of the bin once a week introduces oxygen into the environment and suppresses the anaerobic bacteria without killing the good organisms you need, doing the work of composting. You are not sterilizing the bin. You are tipping the balance toward the good bacteria and away from the smelly ones. It is a gentle intervention, not a heavy hand, and it keeps the peace with the neighbors through August. Use 10. Disinfecting garden tools. This one is short because the doing of it is short, but the reason it matters is large. Disease travels between plants on dirty tools. If you prune a plant that has a fungal infection or a bacterial blight, and then move to the next plant with the same tool, you have just carried the disease with you. This is how a problem in one corner of a garden becomes a problem in the whole garden before the summer is out. Keep a small spray bottle of 3% peroxide with your tools. Spray the blade between plants. Let it sit 30 seconds. Wipe it and move on. That is all. It takes almost no extra time and it stops the spread of disease that would cost you far more than a few seconds to address once it has taken hold. My grandmother wiped her tools between plants as naturally as she washed her hands before a meal. It was simply part of the work, not an extra step. Use 11. Cleaning the kiddie pool or water table. Standing water in summer heat is an invitation. In 3 days, the water in a kiddie pool or a water table goes from clean and clear to something you would not want to look at closely. Algae begins to form. Bacteria multiply, and your children are playing in it with their hands, and if they are anything like mine, occasionally their mouths, which is a thought that keeps a mother busy. Chlorine tablets are sold for this purpose, and they work, but they also leave a chemical residue in water that children are playing in and sometimes drinking accidentally. Peroxide breaks down into water and oxygen. There is nothing left behind. Drain the pool or table. Spray the surfaces thoroughly with 3% peroxide. Let it sit 10 minutes. Rinse well with clean water before refilling. For maintenance between full cleanings, add a small splash, about a quarter cup, of 3% peroxide per 10 gallons of water in the pool. It will keep the bacterial growth in check without harming the children playing in it. Test the water with your hand before they get in. It should smell clean, not chemical. Use 12. Freshening sweat-soaked summer clothing. There is a particular kind of stain that summer puts in clothing and that laundry soap alone will not remove. The underarm stain, that yellow-gray shadow baked into the fabric by heat and deodorant, and sweat working together over weeks of summer wear. You know the one. It sits there through washing after washing and quietly ruins your good blouses. What is happening chemically is that the aluminum compounds in antiperspirant combine with the proteins in sweat and the heat of summer drives that combination deep into the fabric fibers. Regular detergent does not have the chemistry to break that bond. Peroxide does. Mix 1 part dish soap with 2 parts 3% peroxide. Work the mixture into the stained area with your fingers or a soft brush. Let it sit 30 minutes or longer for a stain that has been there a season. Then wash as normal. The peroxide breaks the chemical bond of the stain and the dish soap lifts the grease component of the sweat. Between the two of them, they handle what your detergent alone cannot. Test on an inside seam first if the fabric is dark or brightly colored, because peroxide has a mild bleaching effect and you do not want any surprises. Use 13, treating insect bites and minor stings. Summer means bites. Mosquitoes and gnats and the occasional bee if you have startled one, which in my garden happens more than I would like. The instinct is to scratch, which everyone will tell you not to do, and which everyone does anyway, because an insect bite itches in a way that seems to demand attention. When a mosquito or other insect breaks the skin, it introduces bacteria along with whatever else is in the bite. That bacteria contributes to the swelling and itching and to the secondary infection that occasionally develops when a bite has been scratched open. A small application of 3% peroxide on a cotton ball dabbed onto the bite cleans the bacteria from the surface and gives that familiar cooling sensation that genuinely calms the itch for a stretch. It is not a cure for the allergic reaction that causes the swelling. Nothing over the counter truly is, but it keeps the wound clean and reduces the likelihood of infection. For bee stings, remove the stinger first by scraping it sideways with a flat edge, then apply the peroxide. For anyone with a known severe allergy to stings, none of this replaces an epinephrine injector and a call for help. I trust you know your own body. Use 14. Mold on outdoor furniture cushions. If you have left cushions out on the porch through a summer rain, and who among us has not, you have likely found that particular patch of mold that settles into the seams and the fabric face where the water collected and did not fully dry. Cushion fabric is exactly the kind of porous surface that bleach cannot fully clean, for the same reason I described with bathroom grout and drywall. The bleach kills the surface and leaves the roots, and the mold returns. Spray the moldy area of the cushion with 3% peroxide until it is thoroughly saturated. Let it sit 15 minutes. You will see it fizz down into the fabric. Scrub with a soft brush, working in small circles, rinse with clean water, and set the cushion in full sun to dry completely, because a damp cushion put back in the shade is just repeating the problem. Full sun and full drying are as important as the peroxide treatment itself. For cushions with covers, you can take the covers off, and treat them separately. A soak in diluted peroxide for 30 minutes before washing handles mold in removable fabric covers beautifully. Use 15. Preserving the summer vegetable harvest. This is one the old women knew as well as they knew anything, and it is one that almost no one talks about anymore, which is a shame because it is genuinely useful. When you bring vegetables in from the garden, they carry on their surface the bacteria and mold spores that will begin breaking them down the moment they come off the vine. Washing them in plain water removes the dirt, but does not address the organisms that cause spoilage. And those organisms, in the warmth of a summer kitchen, work fast. Fill a clean basin with cool water and add 3 tablespoons of 3% peroxide per gallon. Submerge your vegetables for 2 to 3 minutes. Rinse them in clean water and dry them thoroughly before storing. That brief soak kills the surface bacteria and mold spores that cause produce to break down early. The peroxide has completely broken down into water and oxygen by the time you rinse the vegetables, leaving nothing behind. My grandmother did something very like this, though she would not have had the words for the chemistry of it. She washed her garden vegetables in water that had been treated, and her produce kept longer than her neighbors, and she simply called it proper washing and moved on. The knowing is old. The explanation is newer. The result is the same. Use 16. Deodorizing the trash can in summer heat. I have thought about how to introduce this one with more elegance, and I cannot find a way to do it, so I will just say it plainly. A trash can in summer heat is a powerful argument for moving somewhere colder. The warmth accelerates every process of decomposition happening inside that can, and the result is a smell that announces itself before you have opened the back door. Once a week, after the trash has gone out and the can is empty, spray the inside thoroughly with 3% peroxide. Let it sit 10 minutes. Wipe it down with a paper towel. Let it air dry before putting a new bag in. The peroxide kills the bacteria that cause the odor and breaks down the organic residue on the inside walls of the can that feeds those bacteria between emptyings. A sprinkle of baking soda in the bottom of the fresh bag gives you added odor absorption through the week. The peroxide handles the source and the baking soda handles what remains. Two plain things from your pantry, costing almost nothing, and the trash can becomes something you can walk past on a hot day without holding your breath. Use 17. Refreshing a well or rain barrel. This last one is for those of you who keep wells, cisterns, or rain barrels. And I know we have folks watching from all kinds of households, old farmhouses with hand-dug wells, and city apartments with rain barrels on the back balcony alike. Summer heat promotes algae growth and bacterial bloom in any stored water that is sitting in warmth. And by August, a rain barrel that went in clean in the spring can have developed a green tinge and a smell that tells you something has moved in. Hydrogen peroxide has been used to treat water sources for generations, long before anyone had a name for the chemistry behind it. The old farmers understood that a small amount of peroxide added to a water barrel killed the algae and the bacteria without leaving anything harmful behind, because peroxide breaks down completely into water and oxygen and nothing else. For a standard 55-gallon rain barrel, add 1 cup of 3% peroxide and let it circulate through the barrel. Wait 24 hours before using the water on your garden. The peroxide will have fully broken down by then, and you are left with clean water and no algae for a household. Well, this is a more involved matter, and I would encourage you to speak with your county extension office or a water quality professional about proper shock chlorination procedures. Peroxide can play a role in well maintenance, but a household well is not a rain barrel, and it deserves careful attention. Know which situation you are in before you reach for any treatment. The bigger truth. Nobody is telling you now. I want to sit with you here for just a moment before you go, because this is the part where I mean what I say most directly. Walk yourself down the cleaning aisle of any store in June and count the bottles. There is one for the grill and one for the cooler, and one for the patio mold, and one for the bug bites, and a product specifically designed for the kiddie pool, sold in a bright package with a picture of children who look as though they have never once gotten into any kind of trouble. I have 7 children. Those are not real children. Every bottle promises to solve one specific problem and no other, and the total at the checkout tells the whole story. Then you go home and there sits that little brown bottle for $1, quietly judging every single one of them from the medicine cabinet shelf. There is no man in a back room plotting to keep you from knowing about hydrogen peroxide. It is not a conspiracy. It is something quieter and more stubborn than a conspiracy. It is a system that earns its living selling you a different bottle for every problem. And such a system has no reason in this world to tell you that one plain thing handles 17 of them. Nobody planned for your great-grandmother's knowing to disappear. It just slipped away, a little at a time, as the bottles got cheaper to make and easier to sell, and the knowing got easier to let go of. The women who kept these houses before us were not smarter than you and I. They simply could not afford to forget, and so they did not. The old ways only help if you actually use them. That is why we built our Amish home savings community over at eliasyoder.com. The link is below. Go buy the $1 bottle. Try a few of these this summer. Then come back and tell me how it went. And tell me your county and how old your house is. I read every word. 17 uses. $1. None of it new. All of it waiting. God bless, and I will see you next time.